Up everyone, just going through the outlook for today. Obviously had a big sell-off in London. It has made EU a little tricky to work with, but we've got a couple of options on GU. Quite frankly, obviously after the week we had last week being such an exceptional week, I wasn't expecting the start of this week to be overly great as we are in a bit of a rebuilding phase of structure at the minute. And the markets are showing that at the moment. So yeah, look, we don't have the best structure to work with. But in terms of what we do have, so obviously, as we know, we've been sitting inside of that bearish leg. We've had that complete retracement. Now we are starting to work our way down. Got a few bearish breaks now. Really good inducement high into break low, inducement high, break low, inducement high, break low. We've got really good bearish order flow. The problem is obviously we've got quite large ranges and it's quite aggressive. And the moves have been happening in kind of weird times without us being able to do too much with it. Now, in terms of what I'm looking for today, so long term, as I've been speaking about since the Outlook call on the weekend, been looking to come and take out that low. So obviously that looks like it's where we're heading. As we know with the rules of the structure cycle, any demands and things like that that we've had on the way down, we don't expect to hold, as obviously as price has been doing. So the demand that we're in now, it is a supply to demand area, but not expecting it to hold, of course. Now, we did have a good medium inducement during Asia, so we can expect somewhat of a reaction from that. However, understanding whether we are mitigating a smart money point, it does make it a little bit tricky. So the preferred option would be to come up and induce this high here. It is a demand to supply area and sits around that 50% of Asia. I'm happy to sell off of the inducement of that. Or we do have this point here, which is retest of that break. I'm also happy to sell from there, as if we can get a setup at the inducement of this on timing, we can start to look to confirm this area as a smart money trap. The least preferred option that we do have would be to come up, take this high, start to move our way down. We then have this low here, which is a valid medium inducement. We can look to buy off that medium inducement, just anticipating a bigger reaction from that inducement, from that break of structure, and from this mitigation. You just have to be aware that you are going against the structure cycle, you are going against momentum, so it does carry a fair amount of risk, but we can very well look at that. We just don't really want it to do too much in the way of what it's doing now and come to take that low. We would more or less want this to come and take that first, or at least, give like some form of a two leg from here just to bring in some buyers, as this has already brought in buyers with that break to the upside. It's just quite small, but that is technically going to be a medium inducement. So I'd really, really, really like for it to not take that pre-session and just push up a little bit from here. Um, yeah, I don't want it to take a pre-session, as that's going to make it very awkward. I won't be buying off the take of that. That's just too pre-session for such a average setup. So yeah, we don't have a lot to work with, but yeah, those couple of options are there. EU's worse. Yeah, EU's kind of got next to nothing really, if I'm being quite frank. Um, if I zoom out on a higher time frame with EU, so obviously we've had that massive break there. We've broken that massive high there. It's obviously more or less a weekly high. We are inside of this demand area, which is a bigger high time frame supply to demand that obviously led to that break. So it's a really, really good mitigation. And we have induced also an internal supply to demand into the mitigation of it. So it's great in that sense. But obviously you can see how aggressive it's been really from that high down into that mitigation. We've just been melting, especially today throughout Asia. So look, I would like to follow with the bearish momentum that we've got. We just don't have a lot to work with to be able to follow with that bearish momentum. The only thing we can really look for is if one way or another we can confirm this area as a smart money trap, or if we can push high, bring in some Asia low buyers by obviously breaking structure to the upside, come in, take them out, same concept as GU. That'll give us a medium inducement. We can then look to buy. I'm a little bit more comfortable buying out of this demand compared to GU, because we're technically at the bottom of our structure cycle now on EU since that break. So we are due for a retracement, and this is a really, really strong demand, whereas GU goes against its current structure cycle. So I'm happy to buy off the demand. But yeah, we're so bearish, we're so aggressive, and yeah, we've kind of just kind of just ruined that setup now, to be honest. 5 minute two leg, buyers brought in. We've now taken buyers out. We're already medium inducing. So we are going to have to look for a new play coming into the session if we're going to buy. The other issue with buyers is you got next to nothing to target. We don't even have retest of that break to target. We do at this point, but it's pretty average at the minute. Yeah, structure's not the best. We can look to work with something like this as a smart money trap off the back of this medium inducement. So I'm going to be open to that. But yeah, buys aren't the best. If I'm buying, it's very, very short term. And sells, we don't really have anywhere to sell from. And the issue with sells is obviously what we've broken here. It doesn't make sense for us to keep trying to sell. The market very well can continue to sell. Obviously, just given what it's doing high time frame wise, it very well can come for this low. I more or less do think that's where we're coming for. Um, but it doesn't make sense for us as traders to put that risk on the table to keep trying to sell it when we are at the bottom of a new external higher time frame leg that's more of like a 4 hour or hourly leg that we're at the bottom of now. So we're in a tricky spot. If we push through this demand, again, same thing. We do have this demand down here. Really good point. I don't know what's in there. Really good point. It did obviously, well, it's the extreme of that whole leg there, and it did obviously more or less create the break. But we're just going to be so against momentum. So look, EU is kind of a write-off for me today. I'm not going to try and force anything on it. If it wants to present something, that's great. But yeah, I do think GU is more so the go for today. We've just got a little bit more structure to work with, and GU is actually just medium induced technically as well. So we're 45 minutes pre-session. We're a fair ways out. We're in an awkward spot. We'll see what we get. We may be able to work with the same sort of thing like that as a smart money trap. But it is going to play out pre-session if it's going to play out. Otherwise, it does still stand. I'm happy to look for sells off of these highs. So wait to see what happens and yeah, take it from there. But I do think GU is the one that's worthwhile watching today.